Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Tuesday, March 24th. You did something completely reckless recently. It somehow worked out, and now you think you are a genius. You made a terrible, impulsive decision, but because you caught a lucky break, you are patting yourself on the back. You are confusing dumb luck with actual skill. If you build your life on a foundation of getting lucky, reality is eventually going to bankrupt you. Today, we are reading the ultimate tycoon manual for reading the board, Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. We are going to talk about why judging your decisions by the immediate outcome is a clown mentality. When I execute a massive VIP asset deployment at NexYear, I can make the perfect play. But if the CEO happens to be out of the country, the play fails. I do not get emotional and tear up the playbooks just because of bad timing. The decision was correct. The variance was bad. An operator plays the math, not the emotion. Let's get into it.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Payne.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Welcome to episode 32 of our theme week, exploring the Tycoon's Ledger. Today we are diving deep into the intricate dynamics of capital, risk, and reality. Think about a time you made a truly reckless, impulsive decision, but somehow, against all odds, you walked away with a massive win. Maybe you dumped your money into a terrible stock based on a hot tip from a deeply unqualified friend. Maybe you completely skipped studying for a crucial exam, or you launched a marketing campaign purely on raw, unfiltered emotion. Against all logic, it actually worked out perfectly for you. You got the financial return, you miraculously passed the test, and you closed the sales. And now, because of that immediate outcome, you genuinely think you are a certified genius. You think you have unlocked a secret, winning strategy that the rest of the world is simply too blind or too timid to see. I am here to hit you with a very cold, very hard truth today. Rewarding yourself for dumb luck guarantees that you will eventually go completely broke. Luck is not a reliable business model. Today, our primary book focus is Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. Annie Duke is a former professional poker player who spent a 20-year career dominating the card tables. During her time as a professional, she won a World Series of Poker Gold bracelet, the Tournament of Champions, and earned more than $4 million in tournament prize money. She realized very quickly that a poker table is essentially a high-speed laboratory for studying how human beings learn and make decisions under extreme uncertainty. In her book, she breaks down a highly destructive cognitive trap that plagues almost everyone in business and in life. Poker players have a specific word for this trap, and they call it resulting. Resulting is the dangerous human tendency to equate the quality of a decision entirely with the quality of its immediate outcome. If the outcome is good, we automatically assume the decision was brilliant. If the outcome is bad, we automatically assume the decision was a terrible mistake. To illustrate how pervasive and damaging resulting can be, we have to look at one of the most controversial decisions in modern sports history. In the closing seconds of Super Bowl 49 in 2015, the Seattle Seahawks were trailing the New England Patriots by 4 points. With 26 seconds remaining, the Seahawks had the ball on second down at the Patriots' 1-yard line. The entire world expected Seahawks coach Pete Carroll to call for a handoff to their star running back, Marshawn Lynch. Instead, Carroll called for his quarterback, Russell Wilson, to pass the ball. The Patriots intercepted the pass, sealing their Super Bowl victory. The next day, the headlines were absolutely brutal, completely crucifying Pete Carroll. Major newspapers and sports analysts universally labeled it the worst play call in the history of football. Everyone believed Carroll got it completely wrong for one simple reason, which is that the play did not work. But if we look at the underlying math and the strategic reality, the decision to pass was totally defensible, if not strategically brilliant. With 26 seconds and one timeout left, an incomplete pass would have stopped the clock, giving Seattle time to run 2 more plays. Furthermore, out of 66 passes attempted from an opponent's 1-yard line during that season, 0 had been intercepted. Over the previous 15 seasons, the interception rate in that specific situation was a mere 2%. Pete Carroll called a play that had a massive percentage of ending in a game-winning touchdown, or a harmless, incomplete pass. He made a high-quality decision that simply suffered a low-probability, horrific result. Carroll got unlucky, but the universe of critics was entirely guilty of resulting. They judged the decision solely by the scoreboard, ignoring the airtight logic of the process. This trap happens in corporate boardrooms every single day. Annie Duke consults with executives and frequently hears stories of leaders who fire personnel, only to deeply regret it when the replacement process fails and sales drop. One specific chief executive officer lamented that firing his company president was his worst decision of the year, solely because the aftermath was a disaster. However, when Duke audited his actual decision-making process, it was incredibly thorough. The executive had looked at direct competitors, identified clear leadership skill gaps, hired an executive coach to help the struggling president, and carefully evaluated outside talent before making the final call. Everyone looking objectively at the facts agreed the company had gone through a thoughtful process and made a reasonable choice. It was simply a good decision that yielded a bad result. The executive was guilty of treating a probabilistic outcome as if it were an inevitable consequence of a flawed choice. The fundamental problem is that our brains were not built for modern rationality. We evolved on the prehistoric savanna to create order and certainty out of chaos. When our ancestors heard rustling in the grass, assuming it was a lion kept them alive. A false positive meant you ran away from the wind, but a false negative meant you got eaten. We are biologically wired to seek tight, predictable connections between cause and effect, even when none actually exist. We are deeply uncomfortable with the idea that luck plays a significant role in our lives. This biological wiring makes us fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the games we are playing in life. John von Neumann, the legendary mathematician and father of game theory, perfectly articulated why we get this so wrong. When asked if game theory was based on chess, von Neumann adamantly said no. He explained that chess is not a game, but rather a well-defined form of computation. Chess contains zero hidden information, and essentially zero luck. The pieces are all fully visible on the board. They do not randomly disappear, and no one rolls dice to determine if your bishop gets captured. If you lose at a game of chess, it is strictly because there were better moves that you simply did not make or did not see. In chess, the outcomes correlate perfectly and tightly with your decision quality, but real life is not like a chessboard at all. Real life consists of bluffing, tactics of deception, and making choices with vastly incomplete information. Real life is poker. Poker is a game of decision-making under severe conditions of uncertainty over time. Valuable information remains completely hidden from you, and there is a massive element of luck in any given outcome. You could meticulously make the absolute best possible decision at every single point in a hand, and still lose. You can play perfectly and have the cards turn against you at the last second. Most people evaluate their lives, their businesses, and their relationships like a chessboard when they are actually sitting at a poker table. They assume a bad result means they made a mistake, which is a disastrous way to navigate an uncertain world. When we treat poker like chess, we end up like a notorious player Duke met in Montana known as Nick the Greek. Nick the Greek routinely played a 7 and a 2 of different suits, which is mathematically the weakest starting hand in Texas Hold'em. Because he played this terrible hand all the time, occasionally the stars would magically align and he would win a pot. When he won, he would arrogantly brag about his brilliant strategy of surprise, taking full credit for his genius. When he inevitably lost, which happened far more often, he would shrug it off and complain about his terrible luck. He offloaded his losses to bad luck and onboarded his rare wins to superior skill. Nick the Greek eventually went completely broke and was deported, all because he stubbornly refused to accurately learn from his outcomes. He suffered from self-serving bias, taking credit for the good stuff and blaming the bad stuff on variance. To avoid becoming like Nick the Greek, we have to fundamentally redefine what it means to be wrong. If you calculate that an outcome will happen exactly 24% of the time, and then that exact outcome happens, your calculation was not wrong. It simply means you just witnessed an event from that specific set of possible futures. When you embrace that you are operating in a probabilistic world, you stop viewing decisions in strict black and white. We have to make peace with saying that we are not entirely sure, and realize that uncertainty is just the objective truth of reality. We must learn to separate the quality of our decision from the immediate short-term outcome. Let us bridge this theoretical gap to your reality and apply this framework directly to the operator level. Consider Drew's reality operating as an executive at NexYear. At NexYear, Drew designs and executes massive high-leverage physical gift deployments intended for top-tier VIPs. This operation is a logistical chess game on the surface, except, as Annie Duke just taught us, it is actually a high-stakes poker hand underneath. Imagine Drew carefully curates and sends a perfect, 5-figure custom asset to the chief executive officer of a major global corporation. The strategic targeting is absolutely flawless. The asset is hyper-personalized to the recipient, and the delivery timing perfectly aligns with a major company milestone. The decision-making process to deploy this capital is mathematically and strategically bulletproof, but there is always hidden information in the deck. Just like in a hand of poker, it turns out that this specific chief executive officer happens to be completely out of the country on an extended 3-month sabbatical. The beautiful, expensive gift sits unopened in a corporate mailroom. The critical momentum passes, and the acquisition play completely fails. How does a pure amateur react to this negative outcome? A clown gets highly emotional and takes the failure personally. A clown engages heavily in the trap of resulting. They look at the failed outcome and immediately decide that the entire VIP gifting playbook is total garbage. They dramatically tear up the strategy, fire the logistics team, and impulsively pivot to a completely different digital marketing channel. They let a random bad break dictate their future actions, acting exactly like the armchair quarterbacks who aggressively crucified Pete Carroll after the Super Bowl. But Drew operates on a completely different frequency. Drew is a true tycoon who inherently understands that life and business are poker, not chess. He knows with absolute certainty that the decision to deploy that specific asset was mathematically correct based on all the available information. The failure was not a flaw in the system, but purely a result of statistical variance. It was simply a bad beat at the poker table. Drew does not arbitrarily change his winning, long-term strategy based on one localized instance of bad luck. He ignores the variance, refuses to get emotional about the sunk cost, and simply plays the exact next hand with the same rigorous discipline. This specific mindset brings us to the universal sovereign standard. You must forcefully stop judging your entire life by the immediate, short-term scoreboard. The scoreboard is a liar that reflects variance just as often as it reflects skill. If you want to win in the long run, you have to ruthlessly audit your internal decision-making process. You have to rigorously separate the final outcome from the initial decision. Think about the terrifying reality of a drunk driver. If you leave a bar, drive drunk, and somehow make it home safely without crashing, you do not pat yourself on the back for being a genius driver. You do not decide that your new transportation strategy is to consume alcohol before getting behind the wheel. You rationally recognize that you made a terrible, life-threatening decision, and you just got miraculously saved by positive variance. Conversely, if you follow every single traffic law perfectly, stop at a red light, and get violently rear-ended by a reckless driver, you do not suddenly vow to never stop at a red light again. You made the right choice, and you simply caught a terrible break. You have to apply this exact same logic to your capital investments, your marketing campaigns, and your daily operations. If your internal process is bulletproof, you must ignore the bad luck and confidently keep firing your shots. This requires incredible emotional control and a deep commitment to truth-seeking over ego preservation. You have to stop using negative outcomes as an excuse to play the victim, and stop using positive outcomes as an excuse to feed your narcissism. You must force yourself to live in the gray area of probability. Here is your blunt, uncompromising directive for today. Stop confusing your random luck with your actual skill. Stop letting a lucky break convince you that you are an invincible mastermind. And absolutely, stop letting a bad beat convince you to abandon a brilliant, carefully calculated strategy. Audit your process, trust the math, and just play the next hand. Look at the last time you failed at something. Did you actually make a bad choice, or did you just catch a bad break? Stop looking exclusively at the scoreboard and start looking at how you actually make your decisions. If your process is bulletproof, you just have to keep pulling the trigger until the variance evens out. Stop letting a bad beat ruin your entire strategy. Tomorrow we are going to look at what it actually takes to build a financial empire. We are reading What It Takes by Stephen Schwartzman, the founder of Blackstone. We are going to break down the sheer, unadulterated scale of tycoon-level ambition and why aiming small is a complete waste of your energy. Stop relying on luck and go handle your business.